think one thing that Jackie Kennedy was so, and I would say she's definitely more of a queen archetype that she was so good with, was she was really strong emotionally. She didn't have emotional outbursts. Like Marilyn Monroe was a girl archetype. She was very emotional and very sensitive, and she would have these emotional outbursts. And there's this,
Marilyn Monroe.
yeah, and there was this story
Really?
where, yeah, and there was a story where Marilyn would, she allegedly called the White House, and Jackie had answered. And she's like, me and your husband are in love, and we're having an affair, and he loves me, and he's going to leave you for me. And she's all emotional. And Jackie was just like, okay, I'll make sure to deliver the message to him. Thank you for letting me. Like, she was so cool, calm, and collected.
Peter.
Wow.
Alexi, great to have you on the podcast. It's been such a long time.
Yes, thank you for having me. So nice to see you again, Peter.
It's awesome. And, I have a lot to ask you about today. I really want to unpack a lot of stuff because obviously I think the both of us know we sort of, in a way, we overlap. As in, I'm talking about dating world, you talk about the dating world, but obviously you talk about different stuff. And definitely interesting to get your point of view on a few, even a few stories that have come up on my podcast there only just a few weeks ago. Some of them are just mental, and it'd be interesting to see what you think as well. But actually, it's funny. I saw yesterday. By the way, this fascinated me yesterday. I was watching Rogan podcast, and Elon Musk was on. Do you watch Rogan at all?
Yeah, sometimes I'll watch clips and stuff of his on the internet.
Man, this has been on my mind all morning. I've been hooked. Do you know, like they were saying last night that surgeons that perform obviously operations, etc., in hospitals, they were saying that the surgeons who play video games, right, who play video games for a hobby or whatever a long time, they actually perform 26 to 29% better when they operate on patients.
That's so funny that you're bringing this up because my partner is a surgeon and he was telling me about this last night.
No
And
way.
him and I play video games together. And I used to frown upon gamers because I grew up in like the 90s, right? When there was like Mario and the duck game. It wasn't like these advanced type of video games. And I don't know anything about video game culture or like any of this kind of stuff. I always assumed that gamers were kind of like these lazy, men who lived in their mom's basement, etc. So we started playing a video game together that really required a lot of strategy and intuition and like brain power. And I realized like how intelligent he was from gaming with him, which is kind of funny. And he would figure things out. And I'd be like, how did you know that? How did you figure out this piece to the puzzle of the game? And he's like intuition or strategy, etc. And he's really good at his job. So he came home last night and he was saying, that he found this study that gamers were better at their job. And he's very precise and intuitive about things. But I wouldn't say he's like an avid gamer, but we like to play video games together.
That's so cool, man. I mean, yeah, I used to race cars for a living, professionally, and I mean, I used to sit on my PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4, hours, gear changing, up, down, left, like doing every track. I mean, I used to race on some of the Formula One tracks that they'd go to, and even I was learning genuinely. Now I was learning the track before I went, and I would sit there literally for days on end, and people couldn't get actually what I was like. Really, you're just sitting around playing video games? And I was like, no, man, no. You've no idea. This is training. Because then I went to a track called Spa, Belgium, right? Probably the greatest track in the world, one of them anyway. And I used to sit there and I knew the track before I got there, and I knew the rhythm, just everything. It was like I was dancing when I got to the track. It was unbelievable. I get it, man, and that's why I was fascinated with that last night, because I'm all in. And obviously your guy is a surgeon as well. What does he do?
He's actually a baby delivery doctor, but
Ah,
he has to do a lot of C-sections. And My sister, who's a nurse, said that this profession is the most stressful out of all because you have to be intuitive, you have to be quick. It's a lot of it is like life or death, giving birth, like making these quick decisions. Should you have a natural birth or a C-section, and then complications happen and the baby stops breathing? Like it's kind of like this high stress environment of you have to be like really sharp all the time when you have a patient who comes in, so that's what he does. He actually went to medical school in Ireland. So even though he's Saudi, he can make a really amazing Irish accent. Like he sounds perfectly Irish when he talks because he lived there for 10 years. So
Wow. Where did he go? What city?
I knew you were going to ask me and I don't remember. I don't remember the school. I'll have to ask him and I'll let you know. But
Well, I'm in Cork, so it'd be interesting to see. Yeah, we've had a lot of Middle Eastern men and women, obviously, and they've come here quite a lot for our education. I think is really, really good. That's why they come here, right?
yeah, allegedly the medical school he went to is like one of the top.
One of the top. Jeez. Wow. And what's his name?
His name, your typical Middle Eastern name, yeah.
And where did you guys meet?
We actually met online, believe it or not.
Okay. What, Tinder, Bumble? What?
We met on, I think it was Bumble. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I
And
told
and
myself,
you guys. Oh, sorry. Go on.
and actually I gave advice on my platform to get off the dating apps. And I told myself that I would not meet someone on an app, but apps have been really, they've been really good to me because I've networked really well through dating apps. I met my ex-husband on an app actually like 10 years ago. And I've met some really great people on apps. And when I came to Saudi Arabia, I wanted to network. I wanted to meet people. So I actually went on and I put in my bio that I wasn't looking for marriage or a relationship. I was just looking to network and meet people and like get to know the communities, etc. Like that was what my intention was. And he's a surgeon, so he worked. He's always in the delivery room, etc. And he works these crazy hours, so he doesn't have time to go out and meet people. And here in Saudi Arabia, it's not really a dating culture. Like you don't go out and like mingle with women. So you either meet a woman like the traditional way through your parents, through connections, etc. So it's a lot harder for them to meet someone. So that's how we ended up meeting each other.
Wow. And is it true that kissing is illegal in Saudi Arabia, or is that Abu Dhabi or somewhere?
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
intimacy. I'm sure like intimacy without marriage is.
Right. Right. Jeez. How long have you been there?
I've been here since like off and on since February.
Oh, are you loving it there?
Yeah, like when I first came here, I wasn't super crazy about it, I'll be honest, because Dubai, Abu Dhabi is like paradise. It's so beautiful and it's really westernized, and you're by the beach and they have all of these like fake parks and greenery, and it's just so beautiful. And Riyadh is kind of like this untapped gem. It reminds me a lot of New York City. It's very hustle and bustle, it's very busy, it's very big. I believe there's more people in Riyadh than the entire United Arab Emirates, I think. There's a lot of people here. So, and it's not as like, since they've only recently opened up for tourism, I think back in either 2018 or 2020, there's not a lot of like westernization or like social things to do. It's very, but I like it because it's still very cultural. Like it's kept its cultural essence, which ended up growing on me. Like I really love it here because you feel like you're living in another culture amongst people and their traditions. And I like the more religious aspect of it. You feel like you're having an experience that's different. Whereas in Dubai, I felt like I was living in vacation all the time. Like I feel like I was living amongst a vacation society, people coming and going. There's not a lot of like the cultural aspect to it unless you go into the like inner neighborhoods where locals live. you just feel like you're on like a perpetual vacation, whereas here you feel like you're like kind of in a growing community. And there's a lot of revolution happening here, a lot of big companies. MBS, when he came in, he had big companies move their headquarters from like Dubai and other places to Riyadh. So there's more Westerners coming in here. Like there's just more, I feel like there's more growth happening here, a potential for growth. And as an like maybe as a Westerner, you come in here with your skills and you're kind of an asset, I feel, because you have all of this experience, et cetera, to add to the mix of everything. So it feels like I have more, I can tap into my potential more here. Whereas Dubai, I feel like is kind of already, I mean, it's still growing and expanding and getting better, but I feel like Dubai has kind of reached some kind of peak, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah,
everyone's been there, it's been vlogged about, it's grown to its kind of capability. I don't know. I just feel like in Riyadh there's a lot of different really great elements to it.
and is it a place that you recommend for single women, single men?
Single men and single women.
Yeah. Like
um
what would the difference between America now be for a single woman versus living there now? Is there any advantages, disadvantages?
Yeah, I feel as a woman it's great here because I believe that men really respect women here. I think the men here are raised to really honor family, and men are also in the Muslim world, in Islam, there is a hadith that says that heaven lies under your mother's feet, and that women or mothers have 3 times more importance than the father. So there's kind of like this ingrained idea that you really cherish your mother. And then the women here, the local ladies, the Saudi women, are very well taken care of by their brothers and their fathers. Like they believe it's their duty to take care of a woman until she's married. So even if she's 40 and unmarried, the brothers and the father will chip in to provide for her. So even like my guy friends,
Wow.
yeah. So even my guy friends like that I have here, whenever we go out to dinner or something and they're taking me home, they're like, do you need anything? Can I take you grocery shopping? Like, do you need what? Like, it's kind of like ingrained in them to like protect and help women to some degree, right? And also, it's been very segregated where like men and women went to different schools. You were not allowed to originally mingle with a man in public unless he was your husband or family member. So there's kind of still this um, separation, which feels nice because you don't have men gawking at you. They're not following you down the street. They're not catcalling you. There's this kind of like boundary there where men don't even really look at you and they know their distance. And as a woman, even I have like we have women's gyms, so I go to a gym, my partner goes to a gym, and there's like this separation. So it's really nice because you feel like safe. It's really safe here for women. And the men are still traditional providers, but there's also a really strong emphasis of education. So women here are highly educated and a lot of them will work, etc. And I also like living amongst like a modest culture. Like you don't see women obviously walking around half naked and looking, immodest, right? Like there's like this kind of pride in, covering yourself as a woman and keeping yourself pure and it's just a different type of place. So I think as a woman it's great because you feel safe, you feel protected. Like the men are, you feel it in the masculinity of the men here. um, and it's great when you have conversations, like even with cab drivers, etc. They'll be like, how are you? Alhamdulillah, praise be to God. Like there's like kind of this like innate positivity in Muslims, at least in this region, that they speak really positive of the leadership and the people in the community, and they want like a safe, prosperous community, right? So you feel it, like everyone's happy and satisfied. I think actually Saudi was named like the second happiest place in the world, allegedly. For men to be here, I think it would be a little difficult just because I know from the female friends I have here that a lot of families in this region are very tribal. So they will only allow sometimes even their sons to marry women of certain tribes. They're not allowed to marry outside of certain tribes. Women, especially, can only marry men of certain tribes. So they're not really allowed to marry outsiders, etc. Their parents are more strict. They're more protected. They're more sheltered in a sense that they're not going to really be out mingling with foreign men, you know? So it might be a little bit harder for a man to meet a lady here. Maybe he'll meet a foreign expat, but it might be a little bit harder for a man to meet a woman because families aren't usually as strict with their sons. They can be, but it's more common they're strict with the daughters.
Yeah, and aren't you from New York originally? Is it New York?
Yeah, I'm from North
Yeah.
Carolina actually. I'm from the South, but I lived in New York City since I was 18. So
Oh, yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit of both.
Yes. Okay. So, I mean, we kind of come from the same culture. Really, Ireland and America would be the same. Do you think it's a bit overkill though over there? The way it's, what you're just discussing there, that the woman gets helped out by the family, which is lovely. Don't get me wrong, lovely, right? And people are discreet about things in public. Is it a bit overkill, or is it actually a nice thing?
I think it's always nice to have some kind of balance, but I do think it's good
Yeah.
for women because in the Western world, women are kind of pushed out at 18. And I think a lot of women make
Yeah.
poor decisions in marriage because they feel like they need to be taken care of. They can't survive on their own. They need a man to provide and protect because no one in their family is doing it. So sometimes women will date out of desperation just to feel that kind of protection and stability from a man. And they'll choose the man based on the wrong reasons and get into a bad relationship for the wrong reasons. Whereas women here, like they don't have that kind of fear because their families are protecting them. So they'll make wiser choices and their families will vet the men before getting married. Now, it doesn't mean that they won't get into a bad relationship, etc. But I think there's just more of a protection around women that make them feel more safe and secure for them to kind of thrive in life. So I think, to us it seems maybe a little bit overkill, but I think I kind of appreciate it. I kind of appreciate the lifestyle. Yeah.
Well, that's good. I guess it's not for everybody, but hey, that's good to hear.
For sure.
I mean, yeah, I mean, and even discussing like what you do now. I've looked at your website there only a few days ago as well. I just looked at it again. Um, I mean, so you talk about the dating world, but you practice empowering feminism. Is that correct?
I wouldn't call it
Or
feminism, but
elegant?
I would call it empowering women in their femininity.
Okay. Can you explain exactly what that is? What would you do now if you've got a client knocking on your door looking for help?
Depends on the client. Every woman has different needs, but I believe that women, we have these four different archetypes that we need to develop. And we have the girl archetype, the lover archetype, the queen, and the mother. The girl and the lover are both feminine qualities of women, although the lover can be a little bit interchangeable between masculine and feminine, depending on how you use the energy. And then queen and mother are masculine aspects of a woman, but the mother archetype is also interchangeable between masculine and feminine energy. And some women are really stuck in more masculine traits, and some women might be in their shadow of their feminine traits. And basically, it's how to evolve into all four archetypes to be a well rounded, balanced woman, right? Because if you're really feminine as a woman and you are, let's say, in your shadow, you're going to be chasing men to provide for you because you don't believe you can take care of yourself, or you have fears of putting yourself out there, and you have anxiety of, like, maybe you don't believe in yourself, and then you have really weak boundaries, so people take advantage of you. So the queen element is a woman who has goals. She's always working on herself. She has strong boundaries and she has discernment. So she won't tolerate certain things that maybe a woman in her shadow of her feminine would. So a girl archetype has to develop these elements of herself so she can make wise decisions. Like the mother archetype is about making wise decisions, being more practical, um, and kind of like the balance of the two, right? Because if you're too much this way and you don't develop like these other, or like let's say you're a queen, a lot of women who grow up without fathers will easily become a queen because they will want to become like the dad they didn't have. So they become like a man, like these women that kind of act really masculine, combative, really, the I don't need a man kind of thing, right? But they lose their softness, they lose their femininity, they can't operate through their hearts. They're not connected to their heart or their emotions. They're really connected to their mind. So they can never relax. So there's kind of like these different elements of womanhood. And my book is about how to develop each of them.
Yeah, because I'm a huge lover of psychology and Jordan Peterson, and I mean, I could just watch it for days on end. A lot of this stuff, and I know that like Jordan Peterson says about integrating your shadow, your monster. Be a monster, but be a controlled monster. It's like the black belt in karate, right? You don't go around beating everybody up, but you could if you needed to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why you need control. And like I even know that from my own racing, where I'm an absolute demon monster. If I put on that racing helmet right next to me, I turn into a completely different person, and I want to destroy anyone that's around me. And a lot of racing drivers are like that, and sports people, I get that. But then I'm the nicest guy in the world. So like, is it kind of the same thing here where you have those four archetypes? Did you say archetypes? Four archetypes?
Yes.
Yeah. And you try then with your courses to give each woman a balance of all four?
Yes.
Or
And
would it be?
correct. And when to use them. So you would want to use your queen energy in work. You would want to use your mother energy with your children. Sometimes you would use your queen energy with men, and some men are drawn to that really strong queen energy. And then with
Mm.
men, typically you want to use your girl lover essence with them. So there's different like ways and reasons why you would want to use each of them, right? You wouldn't really use your girl energy at work, I guess, depending on what you do for work. Your girl energy would be great in a creative type of job, or like a teaching job if you're a girl mother, being a teacher or a nurse, or something creative like an actress or something. She might be a strong girl energy. And one of the reasons why I like this is because a lot of times on the internet, women are told to be like one way. Like to be a feminine woman, you have to be this one way. If you're too masculine as a woman, you need to be this way. But some women, like I had a client who she was a natural queen mother. She was really smart. She was really strategic. She was really good at making money. She was a millionaire. She was really good at investing money. She had like these passion projects that she would grow and build, and they would become successful. And these were her strengths, and she loved doing it. So who am I to
Yeah.
tell her, don't be that way? Be a girl archetype. Be more feminine, so you'll appeal to men, because that's telling her to give up who she is. That's wrong.
Avoid herself. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, she came to me to, how do I become more feminine? Which she was actually quite a feminine woman. She just needed different, like techniques on how to get out of her mind and back into her body, how to detach when she got out of work to, get back into herself and be more, loving and nurturing instead of being too much into her head. So she just needed to kind of like balance herself a little bit. But, I would never tell her, like some coaches will be like, you can't be a feminine woman and work at the same time. But that's a little dangerous too, because not every man is capable of being a provider, being a wise provider, or being wise with money, or even uh, wanting to do that for a woman. So if you're telling a woman to depend fully
Mm.
on any man, that's a little bit tricky, because you're putting your livelihood totally on that man, and he may not be responsible. He may not be like, he could, leave you, right? And then you have no skills. So I teach women like, no, have skills, have passions, know yourself, know who you are, this is your feminine traits, these are your other traits. Like, these are skills and tools to utilize through life. If you want to be with a man who's masculine, he needs more of this energy. If you want to be with a man who's like this, he needs this kind of energy. Like, kind of like tools to navigate the differences, right?
Yeah, and I have to admit, and don't hate me for this, right? Well, actually, this is a compliment, sorry. But like, even, if somebody told me, oh, there's this girl, Alexi, now she's on TikTok, and if I never knew you or if I never seen your videos, and if they said to me, because especially with the woke stuff that happens these days, and, this and that, and like if somebody said to me, oh no, what, she practices feminism, I'd be rolling my eyes up to heaven. I have to admit it, right? But I've seen your content for years, and I have to say, and I'm going to vouch for anybody listening to the podcast, your content is really, really good. Even I've watched some of them for myself, right? Because I know that, like, even there was one of your videos, it was about what, maybe 2 or 3 years ago when we first kind of met. And you were talking about, you were actually standing up for men, right? And I was like, what the hell? And it wasn't that I was thinking, oh, women never stand up for men. It wasn't that. It was just, you were so clear in what you were saying. And you were then saying that a lot of women ride this man off, and then you start wondering, and you're being a hypocrite, and this, like, you're very fair when it comes to both sexes, which is really good.
Yeah, I like to be fair because, and I wouldn't really say I'm a feminist, and because I do think, of course, women. I mean, even in Islam, like if you want to bring your, I guess I could bring that up. Women actually in Islam are given the right to work, to trade, to have an education, to divorce if they wanted to inherit property. So, God gave women these rights as well. So I do think that that was necessary for women to have the option to choose, but I don't agree with the rhetoric of the third wave feminist ideology, and now there's kind of this like 4B community of women. It used to be men have checked out
Yeah.
of society, now women are kind of doing this. But I like to be fair because not all women are good women. It's just the truth. And what I see a lot online is um, women being really hateful towards men and saying really
Yeah.
awful things. And if a man had done something like that or said something like that, there would be an outrage. But for some reason, bad behavior and bad attitudes and you know women have a lot of grace, I think, in society because they've always been portrayed as victims or disempowered, so they get away with a lot more. And I think men are held to a lot of times really crazy standards, or there's not a lot of grace for men, or men's mental health, or what the issues that men face. Like, for example, I was watching Chernobyl. Did you ever watch that? It was like an 8-part series.
No, I've heard it's quite good though. I must watch that sometime. Yeah.
So I've seen the first two, and it's intense. It's really intense. It's about the nuclear plant um, that got caught on fire in Chernobyl in Ukraine, and basically like could have poisoned humanity. And there was, I mean, it did a lot of damage, and still to this day, like, you can't go near Chernobyl. And all of the people who went in to, take out the fire, people literally sacrificed their lives to save others. It was all men. It was all men that saved the day, essentially. And I'm watching this series and I'm thinking, like, as a woman, I could never, even watching this, I couldn't handle the pressure and the stress. Like, I would start crying. But these men were brave enough to say, like, I'm going to go basically die to get this fire out, or to do whatever they had to do to basically dismantle what was going on. And how brave they are, and the men who had to make these really difficult decisions, and how they had to do it like firmly, without emotion, like logically, to handle the stress and pressure. Like, as a woman, maybe some women can do that, I can't. So why are we why are we disregarding like all of the amazing things that men also contribute to society? Like, what are we telling our boys? So I like to be fair.
And what I'm picking up from you here, like what you sorry, excuse me. When you have comments or messages on TikTok now from people, is it and your clients, is it mainly women that you deal with?
It depends on the type of content I'm doing. I haven't really uploaded too much over the last year. I'm getting back into uploading again and starting my YouTube channel. For a while, it was men, and now I would say it's more women that comment on my stuff. I've worked with male clients, but the majority are women. But I would say that it's about 50-50. My followers are about 50-50 men and
Right, right. And even for you there now, like obviously you know yourself, I would get emails or messages, hey Peter, listen, could you ask your audience what do they think of this scenario? Because I like to do that when the audience interacts, and people like to give their opinion. And it's nice, there's genuine people out there, men and women that want to help. But like for you now, what do you think is the number one issue that I see when people come to me? I would say 80% of the problems is an assumption. Someone, whether it's a man or woman, they're assuming the worst of, oh, Johnny, or this girl now, oh, Alexi, I can't believe, how dare her. And you're like, whoa, 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 where are you getting this evidence from? And then you start unpacking and delving into them, they realize, oh, I'm assuming here, aren't I? You're like, yeah, so like I see that 80% of the problems, it's an assumption and they just go straight to the worst and everything blows up. Do you see that or do you see something different?
Yeah, there's a lot of projections, and I have to be careful myself, not of what I'm projecting, but of what I'm ingesting, because you go on TikTok and you see the worst of the worst experiences. You hear the worst of the worst experiences. I just stumbled across the video today of this woman sharing about how so many married men will be flirting with women on the internet and commenting on pictures, and this kind of disgraceful behavior, and so many comments being like, oh, my ex-husband did that, or I caught my ex-husband, cheating in the DMs, et cetera, whatever, right? So you're reading all these comments, you're listening to this video, and it's easy to take that on yourself and then have these fears that this is what all men are doing, right? So I think there's a
Mm.
lot of like really disempowering information on the internet, and then everybody likes to chime in. And even if you share, and this is so unfortunate, and for some reason women are so good at doing this, but if a woman shares her beautiful marriage and relationship, in the comment section, it'll be like one lady had shared a video of me loving living in Saudi Arabia. And so many people were like, wait till her husband does this, or wait till her husband does that. Or, and women will do this too. Like if a woman's sharing her happy marriage, well, wait till he leaves you for somebody else, or wait till he, all this horrible projection. And it's like, and one time I had stood up for this content creator, and I said, why are y'all being so hateful towards her? And then I got all these comments being like, well, haven't you heard that men will leave their sick wives? And haven't you heard that men are doing this and this and this? And it's like,
Oh,
but
man.
that's not her experience. Why are y'all putting that on her? And for some reason, I feel like it's mostly women who do this. I don't know if it's because I'm in more female spaces and I just see it more, but I will say that, yeah, there's definitely a lot of doomsday mindset mentality on the internet.
Yeah, there is, man. I mean, even it's there was this one that just like was unbelievable. Have you ever heard of these Facebook groups called Are We Dating the Same Man?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, the name just says exactly what it is, like, obviously. And it was funny because I'd say it was about a year ago now. And I just went, I can't believe some women out there. Some, again, not everybody. And what happened was two guys I know here in Cork, they got listed on this page, right? And I mean, these two lads were absolutely devastated that they got put on it. They're two single lads. One guy just got divorced. So, in fairness to him, I can understand for him because he's feeling sensitive. He doesn't want maybe even if he hates his ex-wife, he still doesn't want people going around thinking that he's doing this. Or, I understand that sense of it. So they were, I mean, just wiped out for months, these two lads. And then they were saying it to me, and of course, like, I'm used to social media now, where I couldn't give a damn. I mean, I've been called every name under the sun, and look, I'm sure you've got your fair crack. Everybody does, who tries to do content. So I don't care, right? And I said, look, lads, you just got to get used to it. And then at the same time, then I got mentioned on the Facebook page. Now, to be honest, I was actually like, yes, I got a shout out. I was delighted. I was like, can I get some love here, please? But like, I didn't take it personally, because like, I'm not going around. Like, I've nowhere to hide now. I'm not, world famous or anything, but some people know me, and I tell my personal stories. Sometimes I tell other people's stories. There's nowhere to hide for me. And it just made me realize I was actually kind of, in a good way, I was blown away too, because I went, wow, I'm single. I'm not dating anyone right now. And I get listed on this page so that people just go around and just make up garbage, or they're biting into past disappointments. I don't know. I mean, I feel for these people. I mean, do you think that, like, what kind of percentage do you think that people are putting up these vicious comments about you or me or anybody? Do you think it comes from they got hurt in the past, or they just are these type of people that they just like to stir the pot? What kind of percentage do you think? Which
Well, they say that men can ruin you with their fist through physical force, but women can ruin you through their tongue and reputation destroying. I think that women like to get together and gossip, unfortunately. And I think sometimes it depends, but sometimes maybe a woman would be rejected by a man and maybe she's hurt because he didn't choose her. So she wants to bash him online to ruin his chances of going out with anyone else. Because sometimes I feel like a lot of the complaints that women give to men are a bit baseless. Like, I had a client who, she was so afraid of dating because she would be on an app and she would go to one of these websites. I've never searched these websites, but she would go on one of the "Are we dating the same guy?" and she would try to find the guy on the dating app if he was on there. And then let's say he was, and then she's like, well, these girls are saying, and she was showing me conversations. There wasn't anything incriminating. Like, okay, he went out with a couple of the girls. So what? Like, I've gone out with a bunch of guys. So what? It doesn't mean he's a bad guy. It's just they weren't for each other, unless he's doing something really terrible and toxic and putting something in your drink and like abusing you. Like, you shouldn't be baseless gossiping about these people on the internet, because your reputation is important, like,
you're asking for trouble, aren't you? Going on, I mean, like, like, and anybody that's listening, there's obviously a one for men too. Are we dating the same girl? But like, seeing a girl on Tinder or Bumble, and all of a sudden then you're going straight onto this Facebook profile page to see if the girl's in there. That is nuts, man. That is nuts to do this. How can you believe anything these people say in these groups? I'm sorry, but how can you believe them?
yeah.
You know?
I also think that when you're in a relationship with somebody, you have your own energy, they have their own energy, and then the relationship is an energy of its own. And it becomes the energy of its own based on how the two people are interacting. So you might get one version of me, and somebody else might get another version of me based on how our energies are in sync and co creating with each other. So it's kind of unfair to say, like, oh, this guy is like this, because he may be totally different with somebody else. She may bring out a different side to him, right?
Oh,
Or
yeah,
or
yeah,
vice
yeah,
versa.
yeah, yeah.
So, maybe some men might be a player when they're not ready to get married. And he may come out and say, I'm not ready to get married. I just want to date for fun right now. And then hook up with a bunch of girls. And then she's like, oh, well, he's this kind of guy. But actually, when he wants to get married and be loyal and faithful, he's not going to be that way with his wife, because that's the mentality that he's in now versus from where he was before. So it's kind of unfair to make somebody a prisoner of their past choices, because we can always change and become better. And it's hard to judge somebody based on other people's, some people who know me might hate me for some, I actually had this experience with a girl who she projected a lot of her like unhealed trauma on me, and she projected a lot of stuff onto me, and we had a falling out basically, and she had taken something that I had done and warped it into some really terrible thing and used it against me and then lied about me, and the whole thing was like a total disaster because it wasn't a true genuine reflection of me. And then she tried ruining my reputation on TikTok and got other people involved and all this other stuff, when the reality of the situation wasn't at all what she was portraying it to be. So sure, you can listen to her if you want, but that's like an unfair assessment of who I am. So I try to be fair, like I try to not really judge people based on, like, for example, there's one girl that I did business with. She was a horrible businesswoman. She lied. She didn't get the work done in time. She ruined a lot of my fabrics for my fashion line. I mean, it was a total disaster. It was a total disaster. And in real life, she's a really pleasant girl. She's really nice, and she's a friend of a friend, and that friend loves her. They're really good friends. As a businesswoman, she was terrible. She was a horrible person to do business with, right? But somebody else might have a different experience with her, So I don't know. Like, that's my mentality on things. I try to be, maybe I'm too lenient. I do think that there can be things that are helpful with this. Like I said, if there truly is a dangerous man, to warn other women of a truly dangerous man. But I had a girl the other day, and I'll end with this, who sent me some screenshots of a guy she was talking to for marriage. And she's Muslim. They're both Muslim. And in Islam, you're not really supposed to date. Like, dating's kind of haram. You're supposed to only like vet each other for marriage. And he said something so nice and simple to her. He was like, "Sweet dreams. I hope you have a wonderful night. And I hope your bed is as soft as marshmallow pie." Like, something really innocent. And her response was, "This is really inappropriate. I don't appreciate you saying something like this. I'm only dating for marriage, and I'm only interested in marriage and nothing casual." I don't know what went on in her head, but she screenshotted it to me, and she was like, "Do you think this guy is serious? Or do you think he's just playing games?" And I was looking at like several screenshots. He was messaging her every morning. He was messaging her every night. I saw that he was calling her. He was being consistent. I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, I don't understand what was inappropriate about his message. He's being consistent with you. What in your mind is thinking that he's being a bad person? Like, even he was confused. So I think, yeah, I think there's a lot of maybe traumatized women, out there, and I think sometimes the trauma is not even theirs. I think they're taking out trauma of other women, other women's experiences, and then cultivating it within themselves, like kind of like on these online platforms where they talk about all their bad experiences. And then it becomes this kind of like projection onto men. And then it becomes this, this kind of like toxic group, if you will.
So do you think like this girl now, well, clearly I'm even going, what? I can't justify why she went mental there now, but do you think now that she could have easily just had a girly friend who's not really her friend, but she just likes to wind her up? Does that happen a lot with girls, do you find?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like, I had one client, I don't know about her. I wrote her back pretty promptly, and she's a loyal follower of mine. Like, she always shows up to my live streams. I didn't know it was her at the time, but she had told me on my live stream that she'd emailed me. And she had said, you're right. I'm traumatized from my ex-husband, and this is my past stuff I need to work on. So she was kind of aware. But I did have a client once who I introduced her to a really amazing man, and he was going to take her on a trip to Italy. He was even going to give her her own hotel Airbnb away from his. He was going to pay for the whole trip, like the whole shebang. And she had gotten some really bad advice from a friend of hers who told her, like, I don't know, put ideas in her head, basically, put ideas in her head about the situation. And so she wrote to him and she said, I don't know. I'm not feeling really safe because we don't really know each other very well. And what she was looking from him, was for him to tell her, don't worry, it's safe. Everything's going to be fine. That's what she wanted him to say. What he said was, okay, no problem. Like, if you're not comfortable, like, it's no issue. You don't have to come. And she was like, oh, I can't believe, like, and I said, girl, he's not going to sit here and try to convince you he's a good man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you
Oh
feel safe, he's
God,
not going to try to
man.
convince you to feel safe. He's going to be like, okay, I respect your feelings, And she's like, well, I just wanted him to reassure me that it was okay. And I'm like, if you're not feeling safe around him, that's kind of an insult for him you know, that you don't feel good around him as a man. So why would he try to convince you otherwise? You know what I mean? Because he's a good guy. He's a bad guy might try to convince you because they have bad intentions, but he was a good man. So she totally sabotaged the whole thing. And I asked her, like, why did you respond like that? Why did you do that? And she said, well, I was talking to a friend of mine. And I was like, oh,
Oh
uh
God.
oh.
God. Jeez. See, that's the thing. It's funny that you said that. Like, I've seen that sometimes where, you know, a girl could act up in something and she's gone a bit mental, right? She's just completely blowing something out of the top. And yeah, Peter jumps in and goes, look, everything's going to be fine. You're like, okay, Peter, we're going too far here. You said absolutely nothing wrong. Why am I trying to justify this? This is nuts. So, like, I get that where the guy, if the moment the guy says something out loud, he's going to realize, I don't think I should see this girl anymore. If you go into that, you cross over the line. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Especially, like, we've all had our moments where we go a bit mental anyway. But I've seen that from my own experience. You're like, why am I trying to make her feel better? Why is she saying this to me? And worst of all, why am I biting Peter? You asshole!
Mhm.
I've fallen into the trap myself. I get it. I get it. But what's funny? I wanted to ask you this as well. I've had in my life, if anything, and I always try and be self-aware myself, okay, about what I'm going through. Oh, Peter, am I in denial? Am I just, so I'm always checking in on myself. And what I've noticed about myself is that I tend to go for the bitch. Why is that? What's your opinion on that? The girl that actually isn't really into me, she'd blow me off at any second, and I find that sexy. Is that weird?
I mean, I think different men are attracted to different things, but I think maybe you might be a little bit emotionally unavailable, like women. And it's interesting because women should respect the man they choose and his thoughts. She should respect his thoughts and his leadership, right? But a man should also help a woman to feel better if she's feeling bad. Like that's kind of the balance of the masculine and feminine is
Which,
you
which,
respect.
by the way, actually, I like that. I like that, coming in, being the savior, the rescue. Oh, it's okay, honey. It's okay. Don't worry. Give her a hug and a kiss. I love that part. But sorry, go on. Continue.
Yeah, so you respect the thinking of the man. The masculine energy is the thoughts, and the man has to help the woman to feel. The feelings are the emotions, and the feminine energy, the feelings of the woman. So if you're attracted to women who aren't giving you any emotion and they're totally avoidant of you, there's something in you that's also emotionally unavailable. Because if you're meeting women that are emotionally available and you're turned off by it, you're not allowing yourself to be vulnerable and open up to someone. So you're more so attracted to the woman who is not interested. However, I do think that men are attracted to women who have their own lives going on for them, who have confidence, who are kind of like not totally codependent on them, because I think women like
Uh-huh.
this are a bit of a safety net for a man. Because I think for a woman to be totally codependent on a man can be a lot of pressure for a man. Like her everything is she's relying on me. That's a lot of pressure. So maybe there's an
But,
element of
but,
you, especially as a racer, is that you like freedom, as all men do. Like men like freedom, right? So you want to feel free in your and your life and your manlyhood to go out and conquer the world and not feel ball and chain to a woman who needs so much from you. So maybe these bitchy women appear like they have their own life, their own entity, their own energy, that they're a safer bet for you because you're going to still be able to be free while she can thrive with her own, her own life as well.
So I don't have to worry about her kind of being too much on me. Would that be the where
Yeah,
I'm going?
right. Because I think, especially with the type of job that you do, I would say, men who do racing and this kind of thrill seeking a lot of times will be the entrepreneur archetype. And he's the man who needs the most freedom. And when men are like this, they need a woman who can accept that and allow them to be themselves and give them the freedom they need, but also be there for them at the same time for a relationship when the guy is done, fighting his whatever, like doing his races, right? Or going and doing his work, whatever the case is. So coming home to a safe woman, not a woman who's like, where are you? What are you doing? Why aren't you here? Why aren't you calling? Right? Like that energy is not attractive to a man who's like an entrepreneur. He wants a woman who's secure, who can, hold down the fort at home and like be able to fill up her own cup and her own happiness and then be a loving partner in return, but not need so much from the guy.
Yeah, and actually, and I've always said this as well. What I love about a woman is that if I was acting an asshole now, let's just say, I have a girlfriend and, I'm acting a bit of a dick now, right now, okay? I love a woman who would say, you know what now, Peter? Why don't you go fuck yourself, dipshit? Get the hell out of here. And just, I'm not listening to your crap. I love a woman that would put me right back in my place. I'd be turned on. I know maybe that's a weird thing, but I would genuinely be turned on.
Well, because I think men, they love women who have self-respect. Somebody asked me like, why do men love doormats? And I'm like, men don't like doormats. They don't actually want that. They don't want a
Yeah.
woman they can abuse. They actually want a woman who has self-respect, who's not going to tolerate any BS.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Yeah.
a fair thing to
And I
like.
and I, I think really women are the same, aren't they? No matter what way you look at it, a woman does like I know I've known plenty of girls here now in Cork. They're a good looking girl. They've got this, average looking fella. Now I'm not saying, it's all about looks, not at all. But you just wonder like, wow, she's stunning. And this guy, Jesus, girl wouldn't look at the guy twice, right? But it's not judge. But at the same time, then the guy would be very quiet. He'd do everything for the girl. And then, like you can see it written all over the girl's face a lot of the time. They bully the guy, they boss the guy around. The guy sits there and sucks it up, takes it on the chin every time because, okay, honey, I love you. No problem. I'll do whatever you say. And you can still see the woman's not happy. She's pissed off. She doesn't want this guy. Oh, look at this loser I'm dealing with here. And I would reckon, I could be wrong, but I would reckon quite a few of those women would probably go off and cheat because I've got no respect for this guy. Yeah. Am I right? Wrong? I don't know.
Yeah. So I think women want to be spoiled. They want to be taken care of and they want to be cherished, but they want a man who also has boundaries. And I think women like it when a man can say no.
Yeah.
So if you're always getting what you want, eventually you're going to take advantage. That's kind of some human nature, unless you're more evolved and conscious, right? So if a man is giving, 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 it's nice for a while, but you kind of want there to be a little bit of a boundary where he's like, okay, you know what? I've actually given you enough at this point. And no, because it kind of like the man has to kind of keep some of the dominance because women, we like men who are a little dominant, who are a little bit, who are strong leaders. A strong leader is not going to let somebody dick them around. So why would we be able to dick him around? It might be kind of, I think some women they like it at first because they're like, wow, I can, I'm like a kid in the candy store. I can do whatever I want, say whatever I want. And he's always going to worship me and be there for me. But after a while, you start to kind of look at him like less of a man, a little bit
So
because,
sorry.
yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. So you think, as in quite a few women, actually, there's a bit of an adrenaline rush with this, as in like, oh my god, I can do whatever I want. Do you think there's something like that there now, or what?
Oh, you froze, so I didn't hear what you said. What did you say?
Oh, sorry. So like you just said there, that some women could kind of like it at the start, but so do you think it's like an adrenaline rush for some women where they like at the start, right at the start, they're like, oh, I can do whatever the hell I want. This is unreal. Like, is it a kick for them?
I think all women want to be cherished and adored and spoiled and treated well. It's in our nature. It's in our nature that we want to feel like, taken care of, physically, emotionally, mentally. Like we want to feel like one thing that I really liked about my partner was he always opens the doors whenever we're out at dinner, when my water gets low, even before I notice, he notices and he'll refill it for me. We're getting, food at the table. If I reach for something, he'll stop me and say, "What would you like?" And he'll serve me. Like he's always like one step ahead of me and my needs. If I say I need something or want something, he'll order it for me. Um,
No,
like
that's
actually,
I love that. I love that. That's great. Sorry, but I was kind of just going a little deeper there, as in, the woman who bullies a guy, oh, you're an asshole, and he just sits there and takes it. He gets bullied every day by her. Do you think that there's not every girl, few girls out there that actually get a kick out of that bullying? I can do whatever the hell I want to this guy.
yeah. So that's a little different than
Yeah.
being taken care of and spoiled.
Yeah.
I actually know a girl who's like this, and she will emasculate, these women that will emasculate their men in front of
Oh.
people. A lot of times, these women, and I know for her in specific, they've been abused at some point by men. So they have this
Mm.
kind of hatred for men, and and they're a little bit, holding on to that anger a little bit. So they'll find a weaker man who's soft and more submissive, and they're like, oh my gosh, he'll never abuse me, like he worships me, he loves me so much. But then she'll sometimes turn into a little bit of the abuser because he's more weak than she is. I think some women seek out these weaker men because they think they're not going to be abused by them and that kind of thing, but then they end up becoming stronger than the man. And I think as women, it's hard to respect a man that is weaker than you know
Yeah.
Even though my partner is very giving to me, he has strong boundaries too. Like I respect him.
Yeah, but
I'm not just,
that's
yeah.
totally different. That's just being a nice guy. Jesus, yeah.
But these men are nice guys too, right? So how can you, like distinguish between the two, right? Like these guys are also nice and giving and loving and doing everything, but they're getting bullied and mine isn't, because mine has boundaries and self-respect.
Okay, okay. Well, let me try and give you an example here. I mean, I did go on a date there recently, and I'm very mannerly. I'll open the door for the girl. I'm buying a drink, right? I mean, I've talked about this a lot on my podcast, on TikTok, everywhere, about who buys the drinks on the first date, right? Now, I'm very uh old school, where I believe that the man should buy the drinks. Okay. Because I've asked her out. I'm the man. That's it. Now, if a girl offers to buy a couple back because it makes her feel better, of course. I don't want to make her feel bad either. You know what I mean? Um, and I know some people can have a problem with it, but at the same time, I'll be incredibly mannerly. But if a girl throws me an absolute bundle of dog shit and she's trying to bluff me with something, I'll look at her and go, here, listen, come on now. Really? You really expect me to believe that? I remember I even did that on a date there recently. No, I wasn't being an asshole about it, but I was being a bit cheeky about it. And she kind of loved it, actually. She was like, geez, this guy doesn't take any shit. But I'm still polite, even at the end of it, I was a little bit annoyed that she was trying to bluff me on something, and she did try and bluff me. Um, but I still held the door for her at the end of the night. Like that's the way I would see the difference between being a nice guy and not taking shit.
Yeah, I think yeah, it depends on the situation with the man, in terms of his self-respect. But so are you So what are you looking for? Are you wanting to get married? And what has your experience been with women in the dating world?
Oh, my experience. Well, I tell you, I only did a podcast there recently, and and I knew it was actually gonna be a good thing out of a bad scenario. It was only about a month and a half ago where I arranged two dates with two different girls, right? But I I had one date lined up, went to go meet her, she didn't show up. Nothing. I was like, oh, for God's sake, really? Can you just let me know instead of wasting my time? So anyway, after that, then I arranged another date with another girl. And I'm a believer that uh it's better to get back on the horse again fast. Or not fast, but as in don't sit around getting stood up on a date and then letting it fester on you. Let it, like it's a good thing to can if you do have the chance to go on a date again, go on a date again. Because you're not buying into the bitterness or the
Mhm.
anger, you know what I mean? And then I got stood up again twice, right? Two different girls in 1 week. Okay. And then, I mean, this next one was just, this is a piece of work. So I met this Brazilian girl and we arranged to go on a date. This is about 2 weeks later. So but we were meant to meet at 8 o'clock. 7:15, she texts me, "Hey Peter, just making sure, are we still on for 8 o'clock?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, of course we are." So I said, I'm on the way now soon. She goes, "Oh, listen, that's no problem. I'm just sitting here with my daughter and her husband." I went, "I'm sorry, what?" And I'm like, "What the hell am I walking into here?" So to be honest, the fact that I do the content that I do, I couldn't resist going in either. You know what I mean? I was like, this has to be a good story for people. And so I go in. The woman now, and I'm thinking the woman is like 32, 31. She looks young, but obviously she's in her 40s or whatever it is, if she's got a daughter. Her daughter's 25, so she had her very young. And then the daughter's sitting there with her. It's the woman I'm on the date with, her daughter, and the daughter's husband. And they sit there for 2 hours. I shit you not, for the 2 hours for the whole entire date. Now, I literally took it on the chin. And again, I'm thinking, okay, look, maybe there's some good out of this that I can tell people about this horrendous dating world I'm having here. And I knew there'd be something good out of this. As in, lads, if you get stood up, you're not the only one. If you've had a horrendous date, you're not the only one. And, it was amazing. And it even brought tears to my eyes. I did a TikTok live one night. And one girl goes, "Hey, Peter, I listened to your podcast recently about getting stood up twice." And then this woman with her daughter. And she said, "You know what? It made me feel a lot better about going out there. I wasn't the only one if I get stood up." And she went on a date after 18 fucking years.
Wow. That's amazing.
18 years. Unless she's lying to me, but I don't think she is. I don't think she is.
I don't know
Um,
why they would lie about that. That's pretty incredible.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. And then another woman said she was on about 2 years later. Then another woman was 9 months later or something. And I think, now I'm not saying look how fucking wonderful I am. Not at all. But I think it is nice to actually be honest. Just admit it. People have bad relationships. People have bad dating scenarios, stories in general. We all get hurt. We all get pissed off. You know, and if we
Yeah.
can just be honest, nobody goes around telling everybody about their horrendous dating story that they got stood up. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
people don't go around telling about this stuff because it's embarrassing. But I don't think it is embarrassing because it happens to all of us.
I just have a mindset of like whatever's meant for me will find me. If somebody's not going to follow through on the date, then God, God protected me from wasting my time from going out with this person because they weren't for me anyway. Like, thank you. So
Yeah.
for me, I just try not to take anything personally and I try not to emotionally attach to anybody like before meeting them or after meeting them. Like, I like to kind of see how they are over time. And I just have this faith that, who's meant for me will find me and put my faith in God that he'll bring me the right person at the right time. And everybody in between is like, either a connection for something, a friendship. Like, I've made so many amazing friends and connections and work even connections, etc., from dating apps, from people that like I matched with over 10 years ago that I still have an acquaintance with who, one guy, he runs the Vienna Opera Ball, and I go to that, and I got one of my clients as a debutante dancer in the ball. And
Oh man,
he
that's
connected me
cool.
to some people in Vienna when I was living in Vienna. And he's somebody I met on an app like over 10 years ago, and we weren't compatible, but we stayed friends, and he's opened doors for me. And, so I always like to have an optimistic mind. I've met people actually, I met a Saudi friend of mine in Vienna and I met him and his mom, and I met him on a dating app, and I met him and his family, and they've helped me acclimate here in Saudi. And he's been kind of like, we're just friends. We decided like we're actually better as friends than anything else, and that was decided pretty early on in the, meeting. And he's been a great friend of mine, and his mom is lovely. And, there's somebody that I can call here in Riyadh if I need something, so I try to always see it with an optimistic mind. And if somebody doesn't show up to a date or doesn't follow through, then like God is protecting me from something,
No, it's a great outlook to have. You've got some celebrities on your client list, do you? I think did you say that in one of your videos?
I've worked with celebrities in different capacities. So I've worked for celebrities and with their work. I've worked with celebrities in my work. So there's been, yeah, different people that I've worked with. Yeah.
Tell us who. Tell us who.
Well, I've been kind of vocal about a couple of them, but
Okay.
um, I don't know. I feel a little uncomfortable to share, but
Oh. That's fair enough. But did I see Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street? Was he was commenting on some of your videos, I think, one time. So do you know you obviously know him, do you? Or does he know
no,
of you?
actually, I don't know him. He somehow found my videos, and I guess that's how the internet is. And women were saying, "Oh, if Jordan Belfort is commenting, you're not doing something right as a woman," So that was an interesting take. But yeah, I've worked with diplomats. I've worked with a bunch of different types of people while living in New York City.
That's very cool. How did you get into all of this?
Into what? Coaching?
Into coaching, into doing it on TikTok, the whole thing. How did you say, right, you know what? I've got something here. Let's do this. When did you start?
That's a great question. So I started the feminine coaching because a guy I had gone out with years ago, back in like 2016, another one of these met, wasn't compatible, but like stayed friendly with each other, and like he follows me on Instagram, etc. Like, like an acquaintance, right? He randomly called me out of the blue, and he was like, Lexi, you really need to help women. I would love if you were to go online and help women to become more feminine. That was like outright what he said. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, well, I'm dating here in New York, and women just aren't feminine like you anymore. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, I don't know, just like in their demeanor and the way they behave, and like your hair and the way you dress, and everything you are is like very feminine. And I just don't see women like this anymore. This was like back in like 2020. And I thought that's an interesting observation. It was really random and out of the blue. And I had been coaching on YouTube and doing YouTube for a while, since maybe 2016. And I had already been coaching my archetypes course. So anyway, that night, a video popped up of this girl giving advice on what rich men like. And I had been around a lot of wealthy men in my family or in New York City, and I had my own kind of input I wanted to give. So I commented, and then her video went viral, then my video went viral, or my comments went viral, and I wasn't posting at all at the time. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to make my first post about, um, what I guess wealthy men like, because her video is viral, my comments viral, it just kind of made sense. So I did like
Mm.
kind of a clickbaity type video, and it got like 250,000 views in like a week. And then I thought, well, maybe I can talk about different archetypes, because there's different types of wealthy men. There's different archetypes of men and different types of women. So then it just kind of spiraled from there. And within like 3 months, I had like 170,000 followers. And that's
Mm.
kind of really how it started.
You've got a big following. You do, yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of all started from this conversation with this guy. But I have been doing a lot of self development work really since I was 20 years old. And I have been, kind of like you, really interested in psychology, interested in how men operate, what men like, because I think in the Western world, women are, well, maybe everywhere, women aren't really taught much about men and their needs or what they like or whatever. Like, you're just kind of taught how to be a strong woman. You're taught how to be an independent woman. You're taught, to not depend on a man, to have your own bag. Like, you're not taught actually how to have a relationship with a man, or what they like or what they need from a woman in a relationship. You're not taught any of this. And I was married in my early 20s, and I didn't know how to keep a marriage together. I didn't know what I was supposed, like, how this was supposed to be, or, I was totally clueless. So I started working with actually a Russian lady. I learned a lot from her, and about, the psychology of men and femininity. And I started just reading more books and learning more, and really discovering that what we had learned, there's a popular book called Why Men Love Bitches, which I think is useful for some men, but not all. And I used some of these techniques on a guy I was dating, and he ended up dumping me and being with somebody who was so different than a woman who was like what she was talking about in this book. So I started thinking, like, what is the truth? Like, what are the skills I need? Or, like, I feel like I'm getting all the wrong information. So I was like, I want to have a healthy relationship. How? So I started doing a lot of self-development work on myself and discovering more about relationships, reading Dr. Pat Allen, getting to I Do, getting, all information from other books, Fascinating Womanhood, etc. And I started to realize that we we're not, a lot of women are not taught any of this, and they go into a
Mm.
marriage and relationship totally blind. And then how can you build a relationship if you don't have the tools? And a lot of people aren't even raised in households around good relationships. So how can you have a marriage if you've never had a good example of marriage? Or, you know what I mean? So then I kind of just made it my mission
Yeah.
to help women with this. Yeah.
That's great. And like, how would you, let me try and phrase this question now. How would you like, how can a woman incorporate elegance? Because most of the my following for my podcast will be 75% women, right? So I think this is a good question if I can phrase it right. Like, how can a woman incorporate elegance into their everyday life without feeling like it's a performance? If that makes any sense to you.
Yeah. So I think elegance is really, it is a manifestation of knowing who you are and being really connected with yourself and having self respect. So, you know, I think modesty is a form of elegance. And people kind of get this the wrong way in like the Muslim community. People think, oh, all these women are oppressed. But their mentality, a lot of Muslim ladies' mentality is that, like, not everyone is worthy of seeing my body. Why should I walk around half naked for all these men to look at me? Like, I'm precious, and I think there's a validity in that, right? There's honor in that, and respect in that. I think um, it shows that how you carry yourself through life is really important. So carrying yourself, like taking care of yourself, doing your hair, doing your makeup, caring about the way you feel, going to the gym, eating good foods, like like taking care of yourself is a form of elegance, right? Knowing who you are is a form of elegance. I think doing charity work, even like caring about, because the essence of femininity, one quality is like spiritual, because women were the spiritual and emotional centers of the home, being in tune with your emotions, but also being in control of your emotions and being connected to your intuition, but also like that nurturing aspect. Like, for example, Princess Diana, people loved her because she was the people's princess, right? She was
Mm.
able to connect with everybody. She was the first person to, like, hug people with AIDS, right? She had this light and like a compassion about her. That's like the beautiful essence and qualities of femininity. So I think helping people, doing charity work, having some kind of purpose in your life is a form of elegance and like taking care of yourself, really.
And emotional intelligence, where does that come into it? And like, what would you recommend for any woman out there? How can they grow their emotional intelligence? How do they become more in tune with it?
That's a really great question. And that's something that's like something difficult for women to do sometimes because we are emotional beings and we have different hormonal cycles. So I think one thing is like cycle syncing. So we have 4 phases of our hormonal
Sorry,
cycle.
cycle
Cycle syncing. So,
syncing. Okay.
yeah, a lot of women will know what I'm talking about. So we have 4 phases of our hormonal cycle. We have like our ovulation phase, we have our menstruation phase, our follicular phase. So knowing like what phase you are in your cycle and what your body needs for nourishment during that time. So whenever you're menstruating, you need more rest. You need to care about yourself more. Like you need to do more inner work and not be so social during that time. Because you're going to be more emotional. And then during ovulation time, actually your body becomes more attractive. Your waist actually shrinks during ovulation time. Your lips actually get fuller during ovulation time. So you're actually even more, nature made you more attractive during that time when you're supposed to mate. So that's a good time to go out and mingle with people. So, kind of like knowing where you're at in your hormonal cycle, I think is like number one with, emotional intelligence. I
Mm.
think also one thing that is important for women is before reacting, kind of stopping themselves and thinking about their reaction before reacting to something. One thing that Jackie Kennedy was so, and I would say she's definitely more of a queen archetype that she was so good with, was she was really strong emotionally. She didn't have emotional outbursts. Like Marilyn Monroe was a girl archetype. She was very emotional and very sensitive, and she would have these emotional outbursts. And there's
Marilyn
this,
Marilyn Monroe.
yeah, and there was this story
Really?
where, yeah, and there was a story where Marilyn would, she allegedly called the White House, and Jackie had answered. And she's like, me and your husband are in love and we're having an affair and he loves me and he's going to leave you for me. And she's all emotional. And Jackie was just like, okay, I'll make sure to deliver the message to him. Thank you for letting. Like, she was so cool, calm, and collected. And there's a story allegedly that she found a pair of Marilyn's underwear in JFK's bed and went up to him and said, "Dear, I saw you bought me a new pair of underwear, but I think these are too big for me. I'm much smaller than this." Like making a dig, obviously, at her, but doing it in a calm way and like not, you know what I mean? And not having this kind of emotional outburst, just really in control of her emotions. So I think that's something that us women we really struggle with. Some are way better at it than others, but I think really thinking before reacting is one way you can kind of build emotional intelligence. Yeah.
Okay. And I kind of got about another maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and I want to ask you about the presidential election, by the way. But before we do, but before we do, your website, what is it again? Empress Collective. What is it? Alexi, sorry.
Yeah, well, I changed it. I think actually it's empresscollective.bio. It's in my link in my Empress Collective TikTok page. I had it as alexiturner.com, but I changed it to a new I changed it to Beacons. I think it's empresscollective.bio. I should know that.
That's all right. I'm gonna put it in anyway. I'll get
Okay.
it from your website. I'm gonna put it into the Spotify
Okay.
and Apple link anyway, if anybody
Amazing.
wants to take
And
a
I
look at
have
it.
And 2 books I've written. I highly recommend them for women. You can get the bundle for $25. There's a wealth of knowledge and information, exercises, affirmations, etc. So highly recommend for women.
Cool, cool, awesome, lads. Well, that's the book. Presidential election. I'm all over this. I cannot stop watching MSNBC, CNN, Joe Rogan. I cannot. I'm hooked. Junk food. It's like to me. Who do you think's going to get in it?
I think my true thoughts is that most Americans will vote for Trump. I think most Americans want Trump to win. Um, However, I do think that there is a lot of election fraud,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really obvious during the last election, because there were so many people who weren't even alive that allegedly voted. So I think there's a possibility there might be interference with the election and Harris might win.
And correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I've been hearing that there is no ID. You don't need to have a proof of ID when you go up and make your vote. So that means, in other words, Peter and Alexi could be hanging out having a cup of tea in Starbucks today, go up and vote today, and then we could go back tomorrow and re-vote again. Would that be correct?
Yeah. And you're not a
Jesus.
citizen. You could totally fly to New York City tomorrow and go vote.
Oh my God, I even forgot about that. I could be an Irish man, not a citizen of America, and I can go in and fucking vote.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is so, even my partner is like, why is this like, how did this happen? And allegedly it happened during the Obama administration. So
What when Obama got into the White House, it was the
yeah,
same thing for him.
allegedly when he got into the office, he made some sort of policy that you don't need an identification to vote.
Jesus Christ! So you see that to me, that makes me look like that they're going to rig this whole fucking thing. It's over. It's all over. I think Harris is. If this is the case, Harris is going to get in then, right?
It's crazy too because she wasn't even voted in as the candidate that people wanted. Like they just chose her. And then there's all this open border stuff going on where they're like letting in all of these illegal immigrants allegedly so they can get their votes. And she was, I believe, the most unliked vice president of all time, but now supposedly everybody loves her and wants her to be president. Like what? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Nobody liked her and supported her while she was in office as vice president. And now all of a sudden, everyone wants her to be the president. It doesn't make any sense.
Who would you like to get in, or do you want to keep it to yourself?
Trump.
You want Trump? Okay, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Have you always been a Trump supporter?
No, actually, I've not. I did not like him in the beginning because I listened to the media. I listened to the media. I didn't do my own research. I didn't look into, what he was supporting, what he was all about. And then I started doing my own independent research and went into a whole rabbit hole about him. And he has done a lot of good. He's the only president that has donated his entire salary to American charities to help American people. He's not taken a cent from his salary to himself. He did a lot of stuff for trafficking, for victims of trafficking and breaking up trafficking, um, you know, units of people and criminalizing them and closing the borders because a lot of what's happening at the borders is drug trafficking, child trafficking, all these kinds of things, which he was very vocal about. But of course, the media took it the wrong way that he was being racist. So he wasn't being racist. He was saying, like, hey, the people who are coming in are not the people we want. They're people who have bad intentions towards the American people. I think there's two aspects of him. I think he definitely has an ego, but I think, when you think of the rulers of the Middle East, especially like the ruler of Dubai, and these people, they have egos because they want their country to be the best. You listen to the ruler of Dubai and he's like, I want Dubai to be the best, the most innovative, the country to be safe, to be clean. Allegedly he goes around with his team of people to check if there's potholes or things that need to be fixed. And he's like, fix this tomorrow because it's a reflection of him and his leadership. He has a lot of pride in being the best. You have to have that kind of, you know, personality to be a good leader. And I think Trump, has that kind of ego where he wants America to be the best because it's a reflection of him. But I think he also genuinely like loves America. I think he wants America to be the best. I think he wants to end all of this, globalization. And like, for example, we as Americans could be independent on our own oil because we have the resources to do so, but they shut down I think it was like the Keystone pipeline that he wanted to start because of whatever problem. We're so dependent on other countries as a nation when don't have to be. We don't have to be, and we weren't for a certain amount of time. And now a lot of Americans are suffering with not being able to find jobs because everything's being outsourced and the government taking over so many things. And I think he genuinely wants to help the American people. I truly think that.
And so that was the turning point for you. Was it when he was trying to not take a wage? Was that the first moment when you went, "Hang on a second, this guy's different than what we're hearing"? Was that the moment for you?
No, actually, even then I wasn't convinced, but I was seeing somebody who was a Trump supporter and I was not. And we would have these like debates with each other and he was sharing it. And at first I was really hard headed. Like I was like, no, 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 I don't think he's a good person or good leader. I don't know. But eventually he would share information with me, videos with me, things with me, etc. And eventually I started to open my mind and then I started doing my own independent research. And I actually know people. I actually worked for a guy who is a very close friend of them. And I've heard like really great things from people who know them well. Like I've heard really great things about him, and no one I know has anything bad to say about him. His children have been raised really well. They don't drink, they don't do drugs. They're family focused, they're family oriented. You know, they're kind of like the quintessential all American idea. Um, and I mean, even Ivana, his first wife, like she has good things to say about him. They're divorced. So I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't think he's perfect, but no one's perfect and we can't hold people to those standards of perfection. But I do think that his intentions are in the right place. And I think he was good for the economy. I think also it's good to have a leader that other people kind of fear because people aren't going to mess with you. If you have a weak leadership,
Yes.
um, it's not a good thing to have a weak leadership. So I think he was good
Yeah,
for
you
many
want
reasons.
you want a guy that actually, ooh, this guy could be a little dangerous. Actually, like you want that dark side, a bit of a Lord Vader here. That's what you want, like a little, just a touch. Yeah, I agree with
Yeah,
that.
you want that for a leader. Like I even kind of like that in a partner. Like I used to say, like I kind of want a man that like my kids will fear a little bit because they know they can't act up and that he's going to be disciplined and structured and that's when things go well, not when somebody's lenient, allowing all these, who knows where these immigrants are coming from. The Biden Harris administration are putting them in the nicest hotels in New York City, giving them all of this money while the American people are suffering. It doesn't make any sense. Like, why is this happening? There's gang violence, there's a lot of drug users coming in, there's a lot of like people. I mean, even these people are talking about it on social media, how they're coming into America and taking advantage of the system and they're getting all this money. But as an American citizen, you don't get anything really from the government. Like, you know, we're not getting handouts. So none of these people have paid into the system. They've never paid taxes. They're not contributing to the society. So why are we doing this? It's like you're allowing the infiltration of people who are not wanting to acclimate with the society and the citizens. And what's crazy to me is if you're against that, you're a racist. But every country you go to, there's a vetting process. They want to know who you are. Like, they like in Dubai, there's like these people who frown upon Dubai because there's like cameras and the technology is really advanced and you have to do fingerprint when you come in and they check your eyes, they track you, whatever. But Dubai is safe. You can walk around anywhere at any time. You're not going to get robbed. You're not going to get mugged. Like, it's safe for women. There's like a respect for the leadership. There's a respect for the communities. There's a respect for the family. Like, I feel like America is like the wild, wild west. Like, I don't even feel safe when I go visit.
All right. How many times a year do you go back?
Once.
Really? Wow.
And the
Wow.
last time I
Yeah.
went back, I was shocked, Peter. Like, I was in New York City, and New York City has never been like the cleanest place, right? But my friend picked me up from the airport, and there was garbage all over the roads, all in the tunnels, potholes. The whole ride home was potholes, and the roads were all a mess, and everything looked run down and dingy. And I looked around and I thought, and I asked her, I said, has New York always been this gross and like underdeveloped? Like, what's wrong with the roads? Why is there like so much garbage everywhere? You get on the subway, there's the heroin addicts passed out, there's homeless people, there's, you don't
Ah,
know what you're going to get. It's like you're gambling, on your life when you go down there. You just don't know the mental state of people. And there's a lot of undocumented people in New York City, and allegedly during COVID, a lot of them are getting a lot of money and buying alcohol and catcalling women on the street and sleeping on the sidewalk. And it's not, how can you thrive as a society in this kind of environment? And you're
yeah.
being taught that, like, if you speak against it, that you're a bigot or you're a racist or you're against humanity. But it's like, no, these are standards that we should not accept.
Yeah, yeah, and it's the same here in Ireland. You walk down the street here. I mean, my city here, it's Cork City. It's right down the south of Ireland, and it's the second biggest city in the country, and 100,000 people. Right, so that's not a lot of people, and the amount of druggies and junkies walking around the street at 11 o'clock in the morning out of their mind. And they are just sleeping on the sidewalks. They're everywhere. Now, in a way, touch wood for all of us, they don't actually cause anyone any real harm. They're just sort of, can I get some money, man? And you just ignore them and then they go away. But they're out of their mind. It is, and it's ever since coronavirus.
Well, the thing about it is, and there's no, I'm not sitting here trying to judge all these people and stuff. However, when I lived in Los Angeles, there's a lot of this in Los Angeles too. And because they're on drugs, like you said, they're out of their mind. They're not in control of themselves. So you'd be walking down the street. Like, I walked by somebody who was on drugs, and I was walking my dog, and I just was like, look straight ahead, walk my dog. And he turned around and he like kicked my dog. Like, you never know like what they're going to do and how they're going to act. And one guy would like run up to people and start screaming in their face. And I was in the pet store one day, and this homeless guy on drugs came in and started harassing people. Like, they're not in their right mind. So I remember one lady, she had a hair salon in California, and a homeless guy used to come up to her hair salon, and he would urinate on the windows and harass her customers. And they made it a law that you can't call the police on homeless people in California. So she couldn't even get any kind of like police interference to get this guy out. And she ended up losing customers, and then she had to close down her business. Like, why? It's,
Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
it's,
My
there's
God, where did
definitely,
you live? Where did you
yeah.
live in LA?
I lived, when I first moved there, I moved downtown Los Angeles, and then I moved to Santa Monica, like Brentwood area.
I don't know if I ever told you that, but I used to live in LA for 2.5 years. I was Santa Monica,
Oh,
Van Nuys, Sherman Oaks, North Hollywood,
oh, okay. Yeah, I lived
everywhere.
in Sherman for a little bit.
Yeah, that was quite a while ago now, but we didn't have the junkies around as much than it is now. But it seems to be worldwide. All these junkies out of nowhere. It's
Yeah,
unreal.
it's sad. It really is. And I don't know what the solution is, but I think one thing is, and I can get in a whole tangent on this, but I'll just say it like
Mm.
simply, is I think that a lot of people like really need God and a connection with God. And there's been so much demonization around religion and religious trauma and all these things that people aren't even seeking any kind of wisdom around that, and just kind of living by their own ideologies and getting sucked into bad lifestyles. And You know, I think a lot of places have become quite a godless society, and this is like one of the manifestations of it.
No, I agree. Even if you don't believe in God or any other type of God, if you got a purpose in life, something to drive for, to go for, that keeps us going. I think that's like meaning in life, you know.
Yeah.
And if you can have both God and meaning, and life, people around you, family, friends, it's what matters. It's what
Yeah,
matters.
for sure.
Anyway, well, listen. I've got to end this podcast. I'm actually just I'm gonna turn off the podcast for now, but just wait on, because when I actually say turn it off,